Good morning, and welcome to the 8th meeting of the California Commission on the State of Hate. Closed captioning is available for this meeting. The closed captions can be displayed in English or another language, which will allow you to view an automated live transcript of the meeting in another language, including Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. I'm Russell Roybal, Chair of the Commission on the State of Hate, and I officially call this meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. To display closed captions on your screen, please do the following. Click the button labeled Show Captions at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you'd like to display captions in another language, select the box at the bottom of the window labeled Enable Translation. You will see a window with the heading You've enabled translation at the top. Select English as the speaking language and select your preferred language in the second menu. Then click Save. Automated captions in your selected language should start appearing at the bottom of the Zoom window. We will send instructions in Spanish in the chat. Now let's establish a quorum. Alec, roll call, please.
Chair Roybal,
Present.
Vice Chair Salcedo, Commissioner Che, Commissioner Cuellar,
Present.
Commissioner Damsky,
Morning, I'm here.
Commissioner Filer,
Present.
Commissioner Levin,
Present.
Commissioner Sinar,
Present.
Commissioner Suthers. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. Now I just want to review the agenda. You may review the agenda by visiting the Commission's website, calcivilrights.ca.gov/Commission on the State of Hate. You can also enter California Commission on the State of Hate into any search engine. It will also pop up the Commission's website. You may click on the button labeled Meetings and Agendas. We'll send the link to the agenda in the chat. We are making one change to the agenda today. We will move agenda item 2, titled Approval of the Minutes, to after agenda item 3, which is the informational presentation by Commissioner Brian Levin. As I welcome everyone to the meeting today, I want to begin by acknowledging the profound impact that the recent events in the Middle East have had on communities in California. As we've learned from Commissioner Levin's research over the life of this commission, when these horrific events occur, instances of hate tend to rise as well. Unfortunately, we've seen many examples of hate already. In Chicago, Minneapolis, Detroit, and across California, we are witnessing countless instances of hate against people because they are Jewish, Muslim, Palestinian, Israeli, or perceived as members of these communities. As a commission, we stand united with the people of California in denouncing violence and hate. This week, I worked with CRD staff, Civil Rights Department staff, to release a statement in which we express support for communities in California and uplifted the resources available for Californians who experience hate, including California versus Hate. California versus Hate is a non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident hotline in California to support individuals and communities targeted for hate. This is a non-law enforcement way to report hate incidents or activity. The hotline helps identify options for next steps for victims after a hate act and facilitates connections to community-specific resources, including legal, financial, mental health, and mediation services. Anyone can report anonymously, and reports are not shared with law enforcement unless consent is obtained or required by law. If you are a victim or a witness to hate, racism, or bullying in California, we encourage you to report by calling 833-8-NO-HATE or visiting the California versus Hate website at cavshate.org. Well, we'll put that in the chat as well. For individuals who want to report a hate crime to law enforcement immediately or who are in imminent danger, please call 911. For information on California versus hate and to report a hate incident, again, please visit the website at californiaversushate.org. I encourage anyone on our Zoom call today to please get the word out about this resource. During this extremely challenging time, it's critical that we uplift this resource to promote healing and support. And I want to thank the staff of the California Civil Rights Department for continuing to make and support and get the word out about that resource that's available to all Californians. I'd like to now move on to reviewing the process for public comment. First, this commission is a public body, and an important part of being a public body is hearing from the public. To that end, this meeting is open to the public, and there will be opportunities for public comments throughout the meeting today. To keep an orderly meeting, please make sure to comment only on the agenda item under consideration. If you have comments that are not specifically related to an agenda item, please save your comment for the agenda item titled Public Comment on Items Not on the Agenda. To submit a written public comment, email the commission at csh@calcivilrights.ca.gov. We will put that email address also in the chat. We'll be monitoring this channel throughout the meeting. If you submit a written public comment that pertains to an agenda item, we will read it aloud or summarize it when public comment portion of that agenda item is open and before any vote. If the comment is not about a specific agenda item, we will read it aloud or summarize it at the end of the meeting during the agenda item titled Public Comment on Items Not on the Agenda. If you would like to speak at the meeting or deliver your public comment, you will have the opportunity to do so during the public comment portions of the meeting. You may request to speak on an agenda item by raising your hand on Zoom. If you are joining on a computer, you can raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you are on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. During the public comment portion, we will call on attendees who raise their hand to allow them to unmute and to deliver comments. In the interest of time, we will limit verbal public comments to 3 minutes per person. That are the instructions on public comment. Now I would like to move to our informational presentation and discussion titled Social Media Update and Applying Data to Protect Communities in Times of International Conflict by our esteemed colleague, Commissioner Brian Levin. Commissioner Levin.
Thank you so much for having me today. Is there someone who could put up the PowerPoint? Thank you so much. First, if I may, just because of the historic nature of this conflict, both with the loss of life and the manner that this loss of life has occurred, which is affecting communities that are in grief and bereavement. I want to say, as someone who's been participating with the center that I just left for decades on interfaith and on working for peace in the Middle East, I want to say that there are people who care, and that for all in our California community, irrespective of religion, national origin, or ethnicity, we will make sure to the best that we can to make sure that our fellow Californians feel safe, protected, and cared for. And I want to take this moment to thank, in particular, a non-commissioner, Becky Monroe, whose foresight in bringing the hotline to California, something that we had tried 20 years ago, is so important. I want to encourage those who might not want to call law enforcement to please call the hotline 1-83-38-NO-HATE. That's how I remember it. I know that other folks use the numbers a little differently, but I like doing 83-38-NO-HATE so I can remember. And I thought, you know, with what is happening, one of the things that the research has showed is that statements by high civic leaders can correlate to declines in hate attacks. So I'd like to begin just with what President Biden said this morning. We must, without equivocation, denounce anti-Semitism. We must, without equivocation, denounce Islamophobia. To all who are hurting, you belong. You're all America. And if I could just do a little legerdemain and tinker with the president's statement, you're all California for those who are living from the Oregon border all the way down to the international one. And I want you to know that there are people who care, irrespective of what group you are from. If we could go to the next slide. Shortly, about a day before Wadea Al-Fayumi was murdered in a hate attack in Illinois, a major party candidate came out with a disgusting statement, which I will not repeat, stating that all Gazan Palestinians are anti-Semitic as a reason for not allowing refugees. As someone who likes to rely on information and data, I would like to present the center, my old center, which I have no connection with anymore, Lifetime Achievement Award winner. And here's what he said. Before being Jewish, we are human beings. Before being a Muslim, a Palestinian, or Israeli, we are human beings, and our humanity brings us together. And one of the things that Dr. Abulesh, who's been called and is a multiple Nobel nominee, and on the board of my old center, he said this to me shortly after he lost 3 daughters in an errant errant mortar strike at his home. He said, we need big hearts and big minds where love resides. I asked a religious leader, what can we do? I'm more of a data guy. I'm not a good public speaker. And he said, start small where you are. And that's what I'm going to do. If we could go to the next slide. Talking about modeling, after the 9/11 attacks, 6 days later, President Bush went to the Islamic Center of Washington, D.C. And I put some of what he said, but he spoke about respect and dignity and human worth, and he condemned religious discrimination and prejudice, and specifically Islamophobia. We must all do that to the best of our abilities with respect to anti-Semitism and with respect to Islamophobia. One of the things I can tell you from doing this stuff for 38 years, there's a special kind of religious prejudice that seeps into the discourse at times like these. Let's marginalize those discordant voices. If we could go to the next slide. We saw in the previous slide how hate crimes decline when civic leaders speak. We are now coming into this time when we have an FBI report just out, which I will briefly discuss. And what's interesting is in the cities, as you can see, the groups that had the greatest percentage increases were similar, but the orders were a little different. As I stated previously, the center's research showed 22% increase in the top 10 cities and a record, but a 10% increase in the city survey overall. And the final increase with regard to 20 states and DC was up 13%. I bring this up because, if we could go to the next slide, we hit a record for hate crimes in 2022. The highest number of anti-Jewish hate crimes since '93. The highest number recorded with regard to sexual orientation. The second highest number with regard to race. And we saw 27% increase in anti-religious crimes, and anti-Muslim crimes we showed in our city survey to be up 16%. Overall, the FBI found an increase of only 3% in 2022, but 38% the previous year. We found 45%. So we're talking year-on-year increases for a lot of groups. And what I would say is be careful, because the FBI participation of agencies, we saw an increase, but we saw a decrease in the number of agencies participating that I think is a decade low. So those increases don't take into account the fact that less places are even reporting. So that's why I think the center's data might very well be more accurate, because they use a more consistent reporting base. If we could go on to the next slide. The center's research found that half of the hate crimes in 2022 were directed in major cities just against three groups: African Americans, Jewish people, gay males. FBI showed that half that pie of bias victimization actually went across 5 groups. So a little different, but that can be explained because I think we have higher reporting in major cities, and the demographics are different. There are folks that are more common in major cities than they are across the country. But what we're seeing are records, and that is the base upon which these just heartbreaking events are taking. If we could go to the next slide. So for the FBI, what we saw, unlike the increases, or similar to, a little shift in the order, anti-Jewish was up the most, anti-transgender. They were 4th and 5th in the cities. Look at this. Anti-American Indian or Alaska Native. It is high time, and I will be having conversations with other commissioners about this, that we reassert that hate against Native Americans must be addressed as well. Anti-gender nonconforming, you can see, anti-other religion, anti-LGBTQ generally. We're seeing the othering taking place. And again, the 7% increase in hate crime overall, 27% increase with respect to religion hate crimes. If we could go to the next slide. This is just a graphic representation of various groups that were counted in the FBI data. If we could go to the next slide. There is massive underreporting with respect to hate crime, and there is massive underreporting with respect to the Arab and Muslim community as well. But these are the latest data that we have showing increases. And what we're seeing, for instance, in New York, just in a half month, the highest number of monthly reported hate crimes just in a half month against Jews in New York City. Reminder, New York City hit a record for anti-Jewish hate crime in 2022, and certainly the highest in over a dozen years. Anti-Muslim hate crime, this shows us here right now that we are not doing enough. I can tell you, just anecdotally from reports that we get, there were more than this. But what I think is important is look at look for trends. This data is not going to serve with respect to volume. BJS found 250,000 hate crimes in the last year that they had put together their research, compared to just around 10 or 11,000 that we're now seeing. So massive underreporting. But what I'm showing you is, at times like this, we see hate crimes go up significantly. Look for the trends, not for the overall volume. That is basically meaningless. If we could go forward, not meaningless in the sense that people are being attacked, but I'm saying meaningless in the sense that there are a slew of other folks whose grief and attacks are not documented and they are not being helped with, which is precisely why, Becky Monroe, thank you for bringing so many things, conflict resolution, a hotline, to our state. Next slide. This is latest data, literally, out of Los Angeles. So what we're seeing are hate incidents are going up, and hate crimes are going up. But again, if there's one thing that's vitally important, I think this shows that we really have to redouble our outreach to communities that may not have the infrastructure with regard to advocacy groups and others for getting cases to where people can be helped. But what we can see are increases. And by the way, first half of the year, most departments were down. This may turn. 12 of the 14 worst months over the last 30 years were in the second half of the year, and Los Angeles, already before this, was heading for a new record. Let's go to the next slide. Britain, you might see some headlines out of Britain, which is a little different because in Britain they criminalize hate speech. But the bottom line is, from some of the best advocacy groups there, Tell Mama, a wonderful organization in Europe that I've had the pleasure of meeting, their folks are finding a six-fold increase in partial monthly figures. And we're seeing something similar out of CST, Community Service Trust, which is a Jewish-oriented organization. One thing that I have to say, if you look at Britain, if you look at Mayor Khan bringing together faith communities, this is incredibly important. If we could go to the next slide. Here in the United States, advocacy groups as well are reporting increases. ADL is reporting a fourfold. We don't have exact numbers yet out of CARE, but their conference itself had to be moved because of bomb threats to the hotel where they were going to hold that. There is no place in America for that kind of conduct, nor is there any place in America for some of the displays of anti-Semitism that we have seen from streets to college campuses as well. If we could, but one of the things I think is important, look at what we're seeing. We're seeing, and this is why this is telling, we're seeing a breadth across the country and a diversity of incidents. And that tells me that this, while representative, is also representative of massive undercount. From Massachusetts to California, we have seen anti-Muslim hate crime, and we have also seen significant increases in anti-Jewish hate crime. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is what happened during the last Gaza war in 2021, showing big increases in anti-Semitic hate crime in New York and LA, almost fourfold in LA, about almost twofold in New York, which is why we must model in the toughest of times the civility we want, and the recognition of the dignity of all people. Next slide, please. And here's what we've seen before, and this is what I am afraid of. If we have an extended conflict, one of the things that we saw during the 2015 to 2017 season was decade highs in anti-Muslim hate crime. In 2015, we can see on the left, the Paris attack was November 13. The San Bernardino attack was on December 2nd. 5 days after the San Bernardino attack that affected our community, the Muslim ban proposal was trotted out on December 7th to a nationally televised primetime audience, as well as online during the day. Hate crimes against Muslim and Arab people in the next couple of weeks not only went up above and beyond what correlated to the December 2nd attack, but went up over 20% in the next couple of weeks against Arab and Muslim Americans. And this is disaggregated FBI data. So when we look back at what President Bush said compared to what candidate Trump said, there is this correlation, which is why when we have governors and presidents and our chair, Roybal, making these statements, it is very important. If we could go on to the next slide. When we've seen these kinds of conflicts, we've seen anti-Muslim attacks hit decade or record highs. Indeed, in 2016, while we didn't have more anti-Muslim hate crimes reported, and again, massive underreporting, the assaults in 2016 were more than they were in 2001. And we had a head and shoulders top after a relative channel that was lower. So this does make a difference in how we respond. We can't respond to all the cruelties and religious hatred in the world en masse, but we can respond in our own garden. Let's go to the next slide. With that, I'm sorry, let me, if we could go back for a second, I'm sorry. That March 94 came after the Hebron terror attack against a mosque by a Jewish extremist back in February of 1994, at the end of the month. March 94, we saw decade high for anti-Muslim hate crime, anti-Jewish hate crime rather. And then with the beginning of the second intifada in October 2000, we saw a decade high there. We saw similar data occur in 2021. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. I think that's it for the slides that we have. I didn't want to inundate you with data, but the bottom line is we're coming off, as this started, a brief respite in the first part of 2023, which I believe will change. And what we're seeing now is not only when hate crimes spike do they go up, but they stay up for longer. With regard to social media, because I just don't want to take up the time, all the time of my colleagues, 3 recent developments that I want to discuss. One is that Twitter continues to be a cesspool, especially during this time when disinformation, including disinformation coming from overseas people who want, when I say overseas people, I'm talking about, for instance, in 2016, we saw Russia increase their racially divisive ads on Facebook, tripling before the election, because this is what they want to do. So not all the information you see is going to be coming from ne'er-do-wells here in the United States who are trying to sow division. Another quick point before closing. After my talk in August, X or Twitter and Elon Musk is now suing California because of a relatively watered down piece of legislation, which says, if you have terms of service, please report to California what they are and what you're doing to enforce your terms of service. And apparently Elon Musk can't even do that. I'm looking forward to seeing him get defeated in this case, which the Attorney General, State Attorney General is defending. Similarly, just this week, 41 attorneys general, state attorneys general, are suing Facebook for the negative impact that their platform has had on children. So I want to thank you. I want to also send to all who are grieving, it's okay to feel conflicted. It's okay to feel hurt and that the world is spinning against what makes sense. But I can tell you, I stand with all of you against the brutality of anti-Semitism, as well as the horrendousness and brutality of Islamophobia. And that is something that will not shake. Decades of work for Israeli-Palestinian peace and working with Arabs and Muslims have taken the heart that my mom, who passed just days after our first commission meeting. My mother always said, lead with your heart, lead with love, keep your heart open. And I will not abandon our efforts for peace with Dr. Abulesh and others. And I want to also commend another board member, Dr. Hussein Ibish, who so eloquently spoke, he's also an advisory board member, of how we must not dehumanize people. If peace is going to start, it can start here. And I want to thank you so much. And to the people who are in pain, I hear you. I understand, and I've been reaching out with that infrastructure that we had of decades of working on interfaith and for peace. It is needed now more than ever. And the cacophonous voices which exist about death and destruction and dehumanization, we shall marginalize them. And my heart, my home, and this commission that so many wonderful people work to build and now operate will work with you as well. Chair Roybal, my fellow commissioners, I want to thank you so much, because it's during these times when we are hard, when it is hard, that the seeds of peace must continue to be planted. There's a saying, the best time to plant an acorn is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Shalom, salam, peace be upon all of you who are suffering so much at this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. Thank you for that very informative presentation and for your heartfelt sentiments. I know all of us feel that, so thank you. Before we get to any discussion on Commissioner Levin's presentation or public comment, I just wanted to invite Greg Mann from the Community Conflict Resolution Unit, which is part of the Civil Rights Department, to preview the upcoming community forum, and then we'll get to commission discussion and then public comment. Greg, welcome.
Good morning, thank you. We're going to be having a forum, the next one on November 9th at 6 p.m. at the Japanese American National Museum. It's going to be focused on the state of hate and bullying experienced by California's youth. We've got an exciting program lined up. We're going to have 6 different teams, very demographically diverse teams from in LA and some from up north, doing presentations about their experiences with hate and bullying. It'll all start off with a presentation to kind of set the stage, and it's going to be called Dismantling Hate, Confronting Identity-Based Bullying and Hate Crimes, and that'll be performed by Saman Ali from the Islamic Network Group. And then the 6 teams we have will feature people from the Black Youth Leadership Project, AAPI Youth Rising, ING Youth, the Israeli American Civic Action Network, the Los Angeles LGBT Center, and the La Puente High School Dream Resource Center. There's going to be some poetry. There will be an original song performed, and it's going to be all featuring and focused on young people, high school and college age, and their experiences and how to confront hate and bullying amongst youth. So we're very excited about that. And then in December, there's going to be the 4th forum, and that is going to be focused on threats against public officials and the impact, focusing on threats at meetings. It's going to be down in San Diego, and there'll be presentations by experts in the field, including Rachel Locke, who's the Director of Violence, Inequality, and Power at the lab at Joan B. Kroc Institute. And that's where it's going to be, I'm sorry, the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice at the University of San Diego. There'll be another presentation by Carl Luna, who's the Director of the Institute for Civil and Civic Engagement. There'll be a presentation by Peter Simi, who's a professor in the Department of Sociology at Chapman University, and one also by Darshana Patel, who's the trustee and vice president of the Poway Unified School District and a delegate to the California School Boards Association. Very timely topic here, as we've seen an increase in threats and violence at public meetings. So looking forward to those forums. And that one is going to be, I can't remember if I said the date, December 9th, I believe.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg, for that. I know, Commissioner, you've been working with Commissioners Filer and Cuellar on that, and I'm sure we'll hear more about them in the subcommittee reports. I'm particularly excited about the one that's coming up. I'm excited about both of them, but I grew up in La Puente. So having someone from the high school, I went to the rival high school, but I'm excited someone from the community I grew up in is going to be there. So thank you so much for that. I now want to move into commission discussion about the presentation or other things you've heard from Greg. And Brian, it looks like I saw your hand first. So Commissioner Levin.
Sorry, but I do want to give a shout out. First of all, to Greg, thank you for doing this. I was going to include something from Islamic Networking Group, which is a wonderful interfaith group. If you haven't heard of it, please look it up. And one of the things I was going to put in the presentation, but we just didn't have enough time, they have a very good instructor or instructive piece on how to approach as teachers this conflict in the Middle East, and I thought it was beautifully done. But I didn't want to take away from Greg's future presentation involving ING, but I just wanted, if I may, just because I like to promote people who are doing peacemaking and interfaith. They're a marvelous group. If you can look up Islamic Networking Group, they have some good resources, particularly for educators at this time. So I just didn't want to be remiss by leaving out folks. And also, thank you for connecting me with that wonderful student who will be presenting at the forum, Greg. I really just wanted to give a shout out because I know how hard you're working on this as well. And I think this is a time where gratitude should be expressed. So Greg, thank you. And thank you for having ING. They're a wonderful organization.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. Commissioner Filer.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Levin, for your report. I just needed to take a second to share, some of what I'm seeing and based on my own history that I think I have shared with this commission before, that both my parents were Holocaust survivors, and in the worst and darkest times, both in Auschwitz, that some of the reports that I've gotten in, which is very disturbing to me and many in my community. When a Jewish high school went to a football game recently, a good chunk of the other high schools stood up and did a Heil Hitler sign to them. And there were shouts that you should have been burned back in the times of Hitler. And these are things that are coming up more frequently in references to the Holocaust and you know, unfinished business that shouldn't have happened, and references to Hitler. So I want you guys to understand too, that when we're looking at the stats, to not forget the very personal pain that some of us are feeling, myself included, but many members of my community that are hearing these chants, seeing these incidents, and it is incredibly triggering and painful and scary for us. So, you know, and I know other communities will share that same experience, but we must remember the very human level of pain that people are going through. So numbers matters, but the humanity and the pain and suffering that is going on now, really we need to remember my community is suffering deeply right now. And some of us do know people who are still hostages. So we are in deep pain. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Filer, for that reminder and for reminding us about our humanity together. Thank you. Commissioner Sinar.
Thank you. And thank you also to Commissioner Levin for always bringing both the evidence and the empathy in these times. I really appreciate that. Thank you also, Commissioner Filer, for sharing what you shared and the fact that a lot of the fears within Jewish communities come from this real community memory of the Holocaust, and that fear is existential. And I appreciate your sharing that as well. I think among my friends, colleagues, students, social networks, I'm hearing from so many people about that sort of visceral concern for safety, existential fears for the place of one's community, concerns about dehumanization. And I hear this from people who identify as Jewish, Muslim, Israeli, and Palestinian. So this is really a time of charged emotion, both in terms of watching what's happening in Israel and Palestine, but also a time of incredible fear because of the experiences that we see our communities going through and that they have historically gone through. I think for many in the Muslim community, recent events and the public discussion around them brings about kind of the fears and hostilities that many have not seen since 9/11 or the moment of the travel ban. And we're seeing just this forceful reemergence of all the old tropes linking Muslims and Arabs to support for violence and terrorism. And that has a profound impact on people. And, Commissioner Levin has already mentioned some of the recent incidents, the murder of the 6-year-old Palestinian Muslim child in Chicago, a Palestinian man in Cleveland attacked by a car whose driver shouted, "Kill all Palestinians," physical assaults of people at protests. Here in Burlingame, a woman just earlier this week spat on and told to go back to her country. And the after effects of all of that, or on much broader communities, is people removing signs of their identity, telling their children not to wear headscarves, parents telling kids to lie low, people even too afraid to file complaints because of fears of retaliation. And, of course, this is affecting multiple communities. In the Sikh community, those who wear turbans are often identified and flagged, despite not having any identity-based connection to the Middle East. And of course, in the Jewish community, I'm hearing a lot of the same, of people being afraid to send their kids to Jewish schools or otherwise wear garb that might identify them publicly. I'm also hearing a lot about employer retaliation over the past few weeks, where people have lost jobs or have been threatened to lose jobs because of speech in support of Palestinian rights. So we're seeing websites, called terror watch lists, where just private people across the country list the names of people who belong to Palestinian advocacy groups on campus or who have signed statements in support of Palestinians. We've seen employers rescind job offers on the basis of those kinds of websites. We've seen professors publish op-eds in major newspapers saying you should interrogate our student job applicants about what organizations they belong to and whether they've signed on to pro-Palestinian statements before you hire them. So there's a profound chilling effect that I'm seeing where people are afraid even to make comments or engage in educational presentations about, for example, what's happening in Gaza right now, because of fears that even conversations about human rights, if they are discussing Palestinian human rights, will lead to specific reprisal in terms of their job prospects, in addition to doxing and threats and so forth, which we are also seeing. And we want to have people feel not just physically safe, but also feel that they can express themselves civically, that there can be conversations around human rights and space for respectful disagreement about even the most charged political events of our time. And that's something that we want for all of our communities, regardless of identity. So I just wanted to share those thoughts and maybe just make one final point, which is that the fears of retaliation mean that even reporting of complaints is, something that, as Commissioner Levin said, is going to be very underdone at this point. And I think for many in the Muslim and Arab communities, because there's so little representation of people from those communities at the university level, in government agencies, and in other public and private institutions, there's a sense that any even reporting of one's own experience can lead to retaliation. So I just finally want to end by just thanking this commission and the Civil Rights Department for supporting our California communities, and also the various members, all our members of our commission, for doing that in their own capacities and roles. I think we do need to model being able to protect all of our communities, speaking about issues, even when we disagree, in respectful terms that recognizes each other's humanity as a starting point for any conversation. So thank you to everyone for everything that everyone's doing.
Thank you for those thoughts, Commissioner Sinar, and for modeling that behavior. And to all the commissioners for the discourse that we engage in. And it is difficult and complex and can be emotional. And so thank you to all of you for continuing to engage in conversation. Vice Chair Salcedo. You're on mute.
Apologies. Greetings, beautiful people. I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that you are taking care of yourself to the best possible way. I'd like, if I may, invite us to just take 3 deep breaths. So if we can start, just like hold it for a minute, then let it go. One more time. Hold it for a minute. And then let go. One more time. Hold it for just 1 second. And let's just let it go. I also want to ask us to do a quick exercise. And this is just for us to send our love and our energy and our appreciation to all of us here, but also to the world. If I can just ask you to put your hands together, those of you who are willing and able, and then just rub your hands up and down like this, little by little, and then harder, and then harder, and then as hard as you're able to, as hard as you're able to. And then put it out to the world. I hope that you feel the energy that we're generating, healing energy, beautiful energy that's going to help us to erase the hate that all of our peoples continue to experience. Thank you so much for indulging me in this exercise. I hope that that was helpful because it was a moment that I felt the heaviness myself, and I'm sure all of us have felt that as well. So thank you for participating with this on this with me. I do want to say that I mean, it's just hearing and seeing graphics and all of this obviously fills my heart with heaviness, but I also want for us to think, right? What are the possibilities that we can explore for us to continue to do the work that needs to happen to eventually eradicate the hate that we all experience. And I'm thinking, you know, we know that this commission is started because of a piece of legislation. We know that our state has resources, and we know that there needs to be a meaningful and intentional investment, and to make sure that that we do the work that needs to happen in the multidimensional way to eradicate the hate. And so I'm wondering, what can we do to ensure that not just as commission, not just as a commission, but also all the people who are doing this kind of work, right? Who are doing this work on the ground, who are doing the best that they can, not just surviving and protecting themselves, but rather to continue to flip, right? Messages that we're hearing, attacks that we're experiencing, like all of the things, right? So I want for us to think about, like, what do we need? I know that we also have submitted a report that it's supposed to be out to the community, and we're still waiting to hear back, and it's unfortunate. And why processes like this, when we're in a state of emergency, have to wait for so long? And so I want for us to really think about that, right? Like, for us to think about, what is it that we need to do? Who do we need to talk to? What do we need to disrupt in order for us to really ensure that this issue, like, really gets the attention that it deserves, coupled with the resources that we need? And so I'm not sure if anyone from the department can talk about this, but I want for us to really think about our role and what can we influence to really not just create a dent in the change that needs to happen, but actually transform everything that is happening. So I hope that we can have some type of discussions at some point. not sure if in this format, but I just want for us to really think about how do we influence the change that needs to happen for us to have a better place for all of us.
Thank you, Vice Chair Salcedo. Can respond to one thing that you brought up, which is the report. We are, I'll say, putting pressure on the governor's office to figure out where it is and the administration. So that is not, I just want you to know that I am attempting to do that. If I need other commissioner support in that, I will definitely let you know that. I'm waiting to hear back on a couple of things. So, but
Thank you.
more on that. And thank you for that moment. You'll see in the chat, Vice Chair Salcedo, there's much appreciation for having that wonderful moment. So thank you for that. Commissioner Damsky.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Commissioner Levin for his presentation and all of the commissioners who have spoken since for the tremendous compassion that I'm hearing here for all people who are impacted by what is happening in the Middle East. I'm personally deeply moved, and I'm always grateful and surprised to see this kind of support for thinking about the best interests of all the people with folks I know. I want to thank Commissioner Salcedo for that little brief exercise in helping us ground and remember that we all breathe the same air. We all live on the same planet. And I want to remember especially and point out that there are peacemakers in the Middle East who have been working to build relationships and a better future in both Israel and the Palestinian territories. And I want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers as we move forward. Thank you for this deeply moving discussion today.
Thank you, Commissioner Damsky. I now want to move to see if there are any public comments on this item. There was one question in the chat, which is around Commissioner Levin's slides being available. We will put those on the commission website with your permission, of course, Commissioner Levin. Thank you. So those will be available on the commission website. Monica, do we have any written public comment before I move to the verbal public comments?
There is no comment via email. There are some comments in the chat. Morgan said, "Thank you, Vice Chair Salcedo. What a beautiful moment, much needed." Sean said, "Thank you, commissioners, for highlighting our humanity and keeping our focus during this difficult time." So when so much human blood is being spoiled, and now there are a couple hands raised.
Great. So we'll move to verbal public comment. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes for your public comment, and we'll start with Maha.
Thank you so much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to begin by thanking Brian very much for your sentiments, heartfelt thoughts, passion for the work that you do, and really for all the reporting the commissioners have already made. So as Brian said, we really do education, interfaith engagement work. We really don't do hate crime monitoring or reporting. We respond through education, religious engagement. So I'm hoping that CARE is on here. I did talk to CARE and they're releasing the report soon. I did get sort of the following information, but before I go there, I just wanted to say that as an Arab, as a Muslim, as an Egyptian American, I can tell you that like many Arabs, I'm feeling completely dehumanized in the media and by federal agencies, and by just not having them at all recognize their reporting on the impact the that the crisis in Gaza and Israel is having on Palestinians. I just feel that it's very imbalanced, very one-sided reporting, and it's just making me feel sick since the Hamas attacks. As Brian suggested, we can infer that the current crisis in Gaza and Israel is leading to hate crimes against Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims here in the US. So, for example, Palestine Legal Reports say that they've responded to over 260 incidents of people having their livelihoods and careers being targeted for speaking up on behalf of Palestinian humanity. But we've also read about the anti-Arab hate crimes that both Commissioners Levin and Sinar mentioned in their statements. And as I said, CARE should be coming out with a report soon. As far as our organization is concerned, this is what we've seen. Schools and companies have issued imbalanced positions on the conflict. And in the case of schools, they're releasing imbalanced curriculum to teach about it. In most cases, I just want to say it's well-intentioned, but the curriculum is very problematic in what it emits in the curriculum, which is Palestinian experiences. Now, we were able to correct some of it, but that's only based on the stuff that has come to us. Second, Arabs and Muslim students are being teased or bullied. In one case, we're working with Muslim parents whose children were being forced to take a position on the conflict by condemning Hamas, which is the most egregious of all issues that we're dealing with. That's currently being corrected. A third issue is that teachers have exhibited bias in the way that they're discussing the conflict, and it's mostly out of ignorance about the history of the conflict, and we're helping with that as well. And then corporate employees, both Muslim and Arab, are also feeling silenced by corporate statements, which Commissioner Sinar reported on in more detail. And one of the things that we're doing with the EEOC is holding listening sessions to hear directly from employees, as well as for the Muslim employees to understand the law about their rights in employment. And I think that that's being expanded to include other organizations as well. One thing I wanted to recommend on the question of reporting, Brian did indicate that reporting is really not happening by Muslims and Arabs as it should. And I'd like to suggest the policy recommendation for this body, which is to require the civil rights divisions of federal and state local law enforcement to hold listening sessions with community organizations to listen to their hate-related experiences and to also get reporting from community-based organizations to whom community folks are reporting hate crimes. And I think that they should include those reports in their hate crime reporting, but relying only on reporting that comes from law enforcement really does a disservice to all of the hate crimes that are happening in local communities that are going to community-based organizations and not going directly to law enforcement agencies.
You're at time.
I'm so sorry if I went over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments, and thank you for your work. Very important in our state. Let's move on to our next public comment, which I believe is Naziha. Naziha, you have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Naziha Khan. I am the Policy and Government Affairs Manager for CARE California. I just wanted to speak briefly to the impact we've seen the violence between Gaza and Israel have on Muslims here in California. Commissioner Sinar already did a great job describing it, but I wanted to chime in just in my CARE California capacity. For context, CARE California is a chapter of the nation's largest organization representing the civil rights of American Muslims. In California, we represent 1 million California Muslims statewide. As Commissioner Levin mentioned, we've been seeing a national increase of hate throughout our chapters, which unfortunately includes California. At CARE California, we've been receiving an influx of reports of hate-based violence and discrimination in all of our regions, which includes San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento Valley, San Diego, LA, and Central California, and throughout all sectors. We're seeing discrimination at places of employment by employers and fellow employees, kids facing increased bullying in schools, hate-based comments, and even physical violence on streets. We've received reports of people losing their jobs due to voicing their personal political opinions, and even the defacement of places of worship. As the violence worsened, my own middle school nephew here in Sacramento was bullied for days consecutively at school, and it took his mom having to reach out to the school through multiple means for the school to address the issue without ever contacting the mom to learn more or to let her know what action was taken against the students. In Monterey, a woman had her hijab ripped off of her in broad daylight by a former candidate for a congressional seat. I've heard from community members, friends, and family members who feel like we are back in an acute post 9/11 America, where we are hypervigilant about our identity, our surroundings, and after the tragic death of Wadea, even hypervigilant about if we are safe in our own homes. There is a need to educate our youth, to strengthen how schools respond to instances of hate, to highlight the humanity of California's Palestinians and Muslims, and those even perceived as Muslims, and to foster an inclusivity that precedes the next onslaught of dehumanization and hate. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any for CARE California.
Thank you, Nazia, for your public comment and for your work at CARE. Are there any other, there are no other public comments. I do want to, but Commissioner Levin, before I go to you, I just want to go to Deputy Director Monroe.
Thank you. And I do want to echo everyone in thanking everyone for such a thoughtful and compassionate and human conversation. I wanted to directly respond to Executive Director Maha Elganadi's important point about making sure that we're receiving reports of hate, not only from law enforcement. So through California versus Hate, we're able to do that in a couple of different ways. One is people can report directly to us, and we are not connected to law enforcement, so they can go again to the phone number 8338-NO-HATE or californiaversushate.org, caversushate.org to be clear. But we also have a very clear focus on making sure we're reaching out to NGOs and community-based organizations so that if people don't feel safe coming to us, and we know we could do the best job as a state agency that we can, and we are of course trying to do that, but we know that for some communities it will just be too scary to come to a government agency. So we are indeed directly working with community-based organizations across the state. So for example, we are working, ADL is already collects its information, and we're working with them so we can make sure that those reports are reflected with what we do. We're working with CARE California to make sure that the reports that they get are also reflected in the data that we have. So I think it's a really important point. We're doing our best to do that. We would welcome criticism if we're not doing it well. And I think we're going to have to see as time goes on, as people feel more comfortable. But we understand it is our obligation to earn the trust of the organizations that have already earned that trust. And that's what we're trying to do. So thank you for that comment. I just want to let you know we're working on it.
Thank you, Deputy Director Monroe. Commissioner Levin, this is the last comment, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Commissioner Levin.
Thank you so much, but I would be remiss. I have dug up some dirt on Maha, and I'm going to present it to you all now. The last thing I did before I left the center, we selected community builders who would receive our Daybreak of Peace Award. And Maha is one of the California recipients. And I just wanted to take this opportunity. Founder and director of Islamic Network Group, ING, a Muslim-oriented peace-building organization providing face-to-face education and engagement opportunities. For her years of advancing education and policy initiatives. So I had to throw out those kudos to a wonderful person, because she's attending this meeting today, and I wanted to personally thank you for your years of work and for your wonderful impact on a slew of other folks, including my heart as well. And I encourage people to look at the wonderful resources that she has done. By the way, there is some corruption here. Both she, Professor Sinar, and myself have ties to Stanford. So thank you so much. She's done wonderful work for so many years, and I would be remiss if I did not recognize this, as she has so gracefully participated in our discussions. Maha, thank you. You are a friend for life. And as always, anything I can do for your wonderful organization or that of any of your colleagues, it's an honor. Thank you for being at this meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. Congratulations, Maha. There is a note in the chat that says, from Maha, that says Brian and I are mutual fans. So president of each other's fan club. That's exciting. I wish I had a president of my fan club. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll take a 5-minute break. We will reconvene at an 8 minute. We'll take an 8-minute break. We'll reconvene at 10:20 a.m. to continue our meeting. So quick break until 10:20 a.m. We'll reconvene then. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We'll reconvene and move on with the rest of our agenda. I again want to thank everyone for their participation in that discussion and to Commissioner Levin for that presentation. And I especially want to thank and lift up the both what Commissioner Filer and Commissioner Sonar said about the personal pain and historical and generational trauma that exists in communities and how what's happening really strikes deep. And so I just want us to remember that and how deeply it affects folks and people are in pain, and just something to carry with us in our hearts and in our work here at the Commission. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes, which is agenda item 3, that include both our business meeting and the community forum that we hosted. This is attachment A. There's a link to that in the chat. Is there any discussion on the minutes? I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move.
I
Thank-
second.
Moved by Commissioner Levin, seconded by Commissioner Filer. Any discussion on the minutes? Is there any public comment on the minutes from the last meeting? I don't see any verbal. Are there any written public comments, Monica?
No written public comment.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion from the commissioners? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the last commission meeting and community forum, please raise your hand on Zoom or any nays or noes? Any abstentions? One abstention, Commissioner Damsky. And Commissioner Sonar, are you abstaining or you are approving? One abstention, Commissioner Damsky. Thank you. The minutes pass are approved. Let's move on to item 4, the Civil Rights Department report. Today, that report is going to be given by Assistant Deputy Director Alec Watts. Alec.
Thank you, Chair Roybal, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update from the Civil Rights Department. So I'll highlight 4 updates for you today. The first set of updates is since the Commission last met in August, the California Civil Rights Department released new employment data findings for 2021, which cover approximately 7.3 million employees across California. Just to back up a little bit, under California law, private employers of 100 or more employees are required to annually report pay, demographic, and other workforce data to the state. And what CRD does is it collects, aggregates, and analyzes this data and publishes the findings. So consistent with the pay data findings from 2020, the findings for 2021 demonstrate that pay disparities remain a persistent problem in California, with women and communities of color concentrated in the state's lowest paid occupations. Specifically, what we saw in the data is that women continue to make up the majority of low-wage workers and administrative support, sales, and service workers, while men remain concentrated among high-wage workers and executives, managers, and craft workers. The findings also show that Latinos, Black people, and Native Americans remain concentrated among the low-wage workers in California. And related to this project, earlier this month, we announced that we secured a nearly $100,000 settlement to resolve a lawsuit filed against Cambrian Home Care, Inc. over the company's alleged failure to report employee pay data. As part of the settlement, the company has committed to annually filing all future pay data reports. The second set of updates I have for you pertains to California's Fair Chance Act. So in August, we announced a nearly $100,000 mediated settlement with the Moraga-Orinda Fire Protection District over alleged violations of California's Fair Chance Act. For a bit of context on this, the Fair Chance Act aims to protect Californians against unlawful employment discrimination based on their past involvement with the criminal legal system. Earlier this year, a complaint was filed with our department alleging that the Moraga Orinda Fire Protection District unlawfully rescinded a conditional offer of employment without taking into account important mitigating factors, the nature of the offense, the time that it passed since the offense, and whether the offense was related to the job being sought. CRD investigated the complaint and mediated the settlement. And as part of the settlement, the district has agreed to take a range of corrective action. Related, I'm excited to announce that we recently announced the launch of a new online interactive guide to help individuals anonymously assess whether they or another person may have experienced a violation of the Fair Chance Act. And what this online interactive guide does is it asks a sort of series of detailed prompts to help individuals understand whether the type of job they're applying to is covered under the Fair Chance Act and whether what they have experienced may have violated the law's protections. So after a user completes the prompts, the guide automatically creates an individualized report, providing the user with information about possible violations based on their responses, and also provides specific information on how to get support. And finally, the last update is also related to our education and outreach efforts. We recently inaugurated a new free webinar series on anti-discrimination law basics. The talks are hosted by a senior counsel at CRD and are geared towards educating both professionals and the general public of their civil rights and responsibilities under the law. Each month, the topic will alternate between Fair Housing 101 and Employment Discrimination 101. The next webinar that we have scheduled will take place on November 15th and cover employment anti-discrimination laws. And I'll actually put a link to the chat if anyone wants to register. I'm just going to do that right now. And so those are the updates for you. But before wrapping things up, I do want to note that Chair Roybal was recently named a 2023 Leader of Influence honoree. So please join me in congratulating Chair Roybal. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Director Watts. I think, that it was I'm very grateful to be named that. And yeah, it was great. That's all I have to say about that. Commissioner Levin, did you have a comment about Director Roth's report or a question?
No, yeah, I have a question. First, congratulations. So that will be 2 meals I want to take you to. But can we have a little bit more information about this honor? Because I am a big fan of our chairs. Could somebody tell us what
I can tell you a little bit about it. I was nominated here in San Diego as part of this program that the San Diego Business Journal puts out. They name a top list of Latino leaders of influence, and I was selected as one of those folks this year. They had an award ceremony a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's been a wonderful. It was a wonderful honor, and I'm very excited and humbled by it. And that's what I'll say about it. But thank you, Commissioner Levin, and I look forward to our lunch. Great, so thank you, Director Watts, for that report. The other thing I will just say in conjunction with the Civil Rights Department is Vice Chair Salcedo and I have met with the chair of the Civil Rights Council, which is the other public body at the Civil Rights Department, about doing something jointly in the next calendar year with the council. I think the commissioners, all of the commissioners know the council actually has regulatory authority and rulemaking authority. And so we are going to be meeting with the staff later this month, actually, I think later this week, tomorrow, to talk about what that could look like and to make sure that whatever we're doing jointly is based upon some of the data that the department has been collecting. The chair of the council will likely be at one of our early meetings in next year, just to come talk about the work of the Civil Rights Council, and we're excited to welcome him. Let's move on to chair and subcommittee updates, report and discussion. First, I would just like to take a moment to reflect on a few moments of celebration since our last meeting. This month, we honored the contributions of many communities in California as we all took part in Indigenous Peoples Days, Indigenous Peoples Day, LGBTQ History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, Filipino American History Month, and National Disability Employment Awareness Month. I'd also like to honor the contributions of our fellow commissioners. Please join me in extending congratulations to our Vice Chair, Commissioner Salcedo, who will be honored at the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund MALDEF Gala in Los Angeles early next month. Congratulations, Vice Chair Salcedo, a well-deserved honor. And then I'd also like to recognize some commissioners for some of their work that's happened lately. Commissioner Che, who isn't with us today, but presented at the Change Philanthropy conference this week. Actually, I was in attendance at that conference, and Commissioner Che did an amazing job representing the organization she is co-executive director for, Chinese for Affirmative Action. And I also want to thank our fellow commissioners Levin and Commissioner Suthers, who presented at the Eradicate Hate Global Summit that I attended along with staff. Their sessions were wonderful, very informative. Commissioner Levin participated in a panel of other folks who love data like he does, and Commissioner Suthers moderated one of the plenary sessions, one of the general sessions at the conference. So great to see both of them there and in their element doing very important work. And then finally, as we move forward to next year, I just want to check in on our standing meeting time. We have reserved the fourth Wednesday of every month for the commission meetings. We are still working out what there's been some changes to the Bagley-Keene Act, and the council at attorneys at the Civil Rights Department are figuring out what that means for public bodies, including the Civil Rights Council and the commission. But so for now, if folks are still okay with holding, you should all have calendar holds for those fourth Wednesdays of the month in the morning. We'll continue to have those as a hold. But if you feel like that is not a good time and want to explore other alternatives, you can certainly email me, or if there are folks who have comments about that now, we could do that. And then we'll figure out a new time if that time no longer works. All right, see no comment now. So please hold on to those dates. If you, for some reason, do not have those dates held on your calendar, please let Alec or Monica know so that we can send you those calendar invites. Let's move on to the subcommittee reports, and we will start with the Subcommittee on Data and Research, Commissioner Sinar.
Thank you. Just give me a moment. All right, so we on the Data and Research Subcommittee have been working on a couple of things. Partly it's working in partnership with existing research partners for contracts that were previously executed, most especially the California Health Interview Survey out of UCLA, and along with primarily the staff of our commission and CRD. We've been in kind of continuing conversations to fully develop the additional survey questions to be asked on that study. And I think we're really looking forward to, once this process is over and implemented on the ground, to getting really important new data on the prevalence, effects of hate crimes and hate incidents in California, and also the unmet needs from hate incidents, which we hope will be really useful in terms of figuring out our best policy approaches going forward. So just again, a shout out to the commission staff and CRD for all their incredible work on that. I think it's just an incredibly important project that takes us away from purely law enforcement data and allows us to learn a lot more directly from communities. The other thing I wanted to just update us on is that with the leadership of Rebecca Goodsell, our new research specialist on the commission, We've been meeting with many other researchers throughout the state of California who work on areas relevant to our to hate crimes, hate violence, discrimination, and prejudice. So we've had conversations with a number of people whose focus is on everything from educational interventions to social psychology around hate and prejudice, anti-Semitism, online hate, and so forth. And again, I want to just shout out that Rebecca Goodsell has just been an extraordinary addition to the Commission's research staff, and really taking the lead on exploring those contacts. The purpose of all of that, of course, is to fund additional research that can guide our policy recommendations going forward. And just to just give you a couple of examples of some of the things we're already exploring. We are synthesizing the research that's already there on things like educational interventions at the K through 12 level on prejudice, discrimination, bullying, and so forth. And that's through one of our existing contracts with the Institute for the Study of Hate at UCLA. We're also synthesizing what the research tells us about effective ways to communicate about hate and, in ways that prevent prejudice. So those are just a couple of examples of the kind of research we are funding and hoping to leverage into policy recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sonar. Let's move on to the Subcommittee on Policy Recommendations and Best Practices in Other Jurisdictions. Commissioner Cuellar.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to just give a brief update on our subcommittee. I sit with Commissioner Che. She's not able to be here today. So we recently just changed our meetings. We are meeting every other Friday, but we have changed the time now to 2 p.m. to fit with everybody's schedules. We recently were able to finally get our contract in place for our researcher, Halima Barusha. I believe that's the last name. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. So she has been, we've met with her a couple of times, and we are really just kind of sorting out her task and what her scope of work is going to be. Again, and with the help of Rebecca as well, she is also helping us in research as well. So thank you so much for them too. They, again, much needed on our committee, and we look forward to working with them. And again, we are really focused on language access, but also responses to hate and prevention. And I think we are currently working on setting up regular meetings with key state agencies. We've had meetings with GovOps Maureen Kiefer, as well as Cal OES Abby Browning, and we are looking for other key agencies, state agencies, to continue to meet and see what kind of policies and things that they have. Let's see, right now, Maureen Kiefer was able to share with us that they are currently working on a language access pilot program. So we are hoping to be able to partner with them on some of their meetings to kind of get to see what's going to be coming in that pilot program, and hopefully we'll be able to make some recommendations. Also, let's see, I know that there was a meeting recently with Maureen, and she was able to share that extensive work is taking place at the state level to revamp and improve language access. She also pointed us to a number of data sources that can help us in our research. And there are currently vendor selection process that she is part of, and they are focusing on getting technology that could help with translation for language. So that's something that's coming down the pipeline. And again, we are still actively seeking out those state agencies to have those chats with. Let's see what else. I think that's it. I mean, again, Commissioner Che is not with us today, but I'm hoping she'll be with us the next meeting. But that's all I have to report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cuellar. I'm two comments. One, I'm very excited. The staff told me about the language justice pilot. So we are one of the things that gets to try that out for the state. So I'm very excited about that, for us to be able to provide information in languages other than English. then, and the second thing, one of the things I wanted to see if I could task the subcommittee with is one of the things that is in the statute that created the commission was the creation of non-member advisors. And so now that we have almost a year of experience under our belt, I would like the subcommittee on policy recommendations to take up figuring out how we vet and add non-member advisors, in particular to subcommittees. And I think that someone who's been a regular attendee who's not here today, but I did have a email back and forth with him, Greg DeGere from the ARC of California, I think would be interested in helping you with that. So once you get to talk to Commissioner Che about it, Director Watts can connect you with Greg, and I think he'll be a valuable resource in helping figure some of that out and the role that non-member advisors would play. This is not an urgent thing, like we need to figure it out in the next month, but we should start that conversation, in particular as we start to think about our next report. So thank you.
Yeah, great. I'll definitely take that to Commissioner Che, and I do remember that conversation with Greg. So we'll definitely be working on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Quer. Commissioner Levin.
Yes, just briefly. There were wonderful community leaders that worked with me to get this commission established. And I would like to make sure that at least some of the Maha, who apparently said we have a mutual fan club, but I'm a bigger fan, is one of those people. They bring a tremendous amount of knowledge and resources, as well as expertise, and I'd love to be able to connect that committee with some of those folks. Another point, though, that I'd like to make, last year, folks were talking about representation, and I think that's very important. If a commissioner cannot attend a meeting, and we understand that, that's why when we worked on this legislation, we allowed for people to sit instead during those times. I would encourage, please, to the extent that someone, and you know, I've made every meeting, and I know it's an effort for folks, and people are busy, but the representation is important. So to the extent that there is someone that commissioner who might have a conflict scheduling, I think it would be nice if we could get them to make sure that someone is substituted in. We were very careful about putting that in the legislation because we knew if you're going to get the excellent people that we have, and look who we have here. And one second, Chair, we're looking at other states which are taking away resource centers for oppressed, vulnerable, and numerically minority communities. Big states that are doing this, and big states that are having records for hate crime too. So what I would like to say is, to the extent that people cannot attend, and we understand, please find someone who would really benefit from being at one of these meetings, and also that would represent some of the views or groups that do not get represented. And just with regard to Maha's statement, I will continue to talk to her offline about things like that, but that might be something to look at about interfaith. It's so very important, and it's also important, if I can just say a thank you to everybody, to my fellow commissioners and the staff of the Civil Rights Department. When we were trying to put this together, we knew that there would be times that would be very difficult, and this is the exact time when we are so blessed to have every one of you. And I want to just extend that not only to the bigwigs at Civil Rights Department, but everybody and all the commissioners. Thank you. Thank you. It's these tough times when these kinds of places for dialogue and information are so important. And I want to really just reiterate my heartfelt thanks to every single one of you, not only commissioner, but staff who are working so hard and who often don't get the kind of recognition during these meetings. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. Director Watts, when in our next meeting, could we go over the protocol for representation for you and I, just so that we have a better understanding and we can communicate that to commissioners? So thank you for that. Commissioner Filer.
I think you just said what I was thinking, like we must have some kind of screening process and, you know, ensuring, I mean, all of us commissioners, I think, are in the same place and understand and have an empathy and understanding for each other and each other's communities. And we want to be careful about who we're sending in. So we're going to organize some kind of screening process, I'm going to assume.
Yeah, that's why I asked Director Watts for us to review that, to make sure that all the commissioners understand that. Let's move on to our next subcommittee on recommendations for law enforcement. Commissioner Damsky.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, commissioners, staff, and guests. With the assistance of the California Civil Rights Department staff, the Committee on Recommendations for Law Enforcement has been tracking Assembly Bill 449, which Governor Newsom signed into law on October 8th of this year. AB 449 is called Hate Crimes, Law Enforcement Policies. What is exciting about this law is that it mandates reporting of hate crime statistics by state and local law enforcement agencies starting in July 1st of next year. These agencies would also be required to include a supplemental hate crime report in a policy framework developed by the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, also known as POST, and a schedule of hate crime or related trainings that the agency conducts. AB 449 requires law enforcement agencies to adopt a broad hate crimes policy. Here are a few examples of items which shall be included, and there are many more. Policy, definitions, response and reporting responsibilities, training resources, the supplemental hate crime report, and planning and prevention methods. Information regarding bias, motivation, and identification related to gender, race, religion, or disability, and other protected categories. The law will help determine whether any additional resources are needed on the scene to assist victims, or whether to refer victims to appropriate community and legal services, and providing the victims and any interested parties with the agency's hate crimes brochure. It mandates a schedule of required hate crime training and any other hate crime or related training that the agencies may conduct. The Attorney General will direct state and local law enforcement agencies to report to the Department of Justice, overseen by the Attorney General, any information that may be required relative to hate crimes. It also requires ongoing production of hate crime materials on a 4-year schedule. All law enforcement agencies, including special districts, will produce to the Attorney General's office their hate crime materials on a specified date, and then every 4 years thereafter in perpetuity. The Department of Justice will update the Open Justice web portal on or before July 1st of each year with the information obtained from law enforcement agencies, and the department shall submit its analysis of this data to the legislature. Law enforcement agencies shall additionally post the information required to their internet websites on a monthly basis. And those are just some of the particulars in this law, which I won't detail further today. Our committee has been meeting with Manny Alvarez Jr., the Executive Director of the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, for the past several months. We've been discussing the creation of updated training videos for law enforcement professionals specifically related to AB 449. The passage of this law creates a unique opportunity for our committee to work with Post on creating new 15-minute training video on the supplemental hate crime report, which AB 449 mandates. Currently, we are working on a two-phase project. The first phase is reaching out broadly to subject matter experts for creating guidelines for content about recognizing hate crimes and incidents. This phase will have active work sessions over several days in Carlsbad, California, between February 28th and March 1st. The product of this work period will be a draft submitted to the full commission for review. We are in the process of creating that list of subject matter experts now. The second phase will take place between April 29th and May 2nd of next year, also in Carlsbad, California, and will culminate in filming the training video. We have been floating the idea of securing prominent actors to star in the video in order to generate greater buzz, interest, and appeal to the law enforcement community, and this is still under discussion. On behalf of myself and Commissioner Suthers, who is unable to be here today, this concludes the report from the Committee on Recommendations for Law Enforcement.
Thank you so much for that report, Commissioner Adamski. Commissioner Filer, you have your hand up. Did you have a comment, or are you just still up from last time? Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for that report. Oh, Commissioner Levin, did you have a question for Commissioner Adamski or the subcommittee?
No, I wanted to thank her, but I think it's important to also give kudos when they're due. I wanted to thank Commissioner Adamski for this, thank Commissioner Suthers, and also I wanted to thank Assemblymember Ting, who put that legislation through. This came about in 2016 when a group of us and I went to the legislature to ask that policies be mandated, as well as investigatory steps be mandatory, so that, again, this is a multi-year effort. And one of the things that we found 30 years ago when I did a best practices study that was published in Stanford Law and Policy Review, all the departments that were making meaningful difference had a policy. And previously, what had happened was a lot of departments would have some prefab policy, would have no policy at all, and some of the ones that did would have one made, produced by a private corporate entity, which was more designed to protect against liability issues than actually servicing the public. So I just wanted to thank our two wonderful commissioners who were with this, as well as Manny Alvarez, who I've worked before on some hate initiatives, and Assemblymember Ting. And the reason is, this stuff doesn't happen out of full cloth. There are community people and legislators that really go out in line, and Assemblymember Ting was quite helpful over the course of years to get this in. So just want to give some gratitude and background to some wonderful folks who were involved in, including, by the way, Greg DeGier, who's involved with that as well. So, Commissioner, you're doing great stuff. Thank you so much. I owe you a lunch.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Commissioner Levin.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. The other thing I would point out, Commissioner Adamski, is Commissioner Cuellar, in her role as tribal chair of the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, also oversees a police department. So, so if there are some connections to be made there, I think that the two of you should connect around that at some point.
Wonderful. We had in our committee talked about reaching out to several members of our commission for their expertise, and ran into questions about how we could do that without violating Brown Act regulations. So this is something we'll be exploring as we move forward, but thank you for recommending Commissioner Cuellar for that particular connection.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to the subcommittee on community forums. Commissioner Filer.
Thank you. So I have to thank Gregory Mann for the exceptional work that he's doing on our next upcoming forum on November 9th. And I hope that either you can, all of our commissioners, you can make it in person or access the Zoom option that we'll have, because I think with all those teens coming, we want to give them as much support and hear what they have to say, because I think their perspective on how hate has impacted them is going to be pretty important. And again, we've been working on our 2 forums that are coming up. The next one will be on December 8th in San Diego. And I just want to confirm we'll be having our commission meeting before that forum. Okay, great. And again, if you can stay and listen to that forum, I think it should be very powerful. We continue to meet every other week, and we'll be wrapping up this year's and moving on to next year's forums. And what we'd like to do for next year's is maybe get them calendared way ahead of time so we can give you those hold dates so that you can possibly make them. Commissioner Cuellar, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, you did a great job, Cece. Thank you so much. The only thing I would like to see, I know that everybody, the commission today has a flyer for the community forum. So if you guys know of any, please share it with your fellow colleagues and any other groups that you think would be important. Again, I think this next forum is going to be very impactful, emotional, and yeah, I would really encourage anybody to come. Again, especially with everything, the tensions that's going on in the world and the atmosphere, I think it's important that we definitely support our young youth. They are our next leaders. And again, just thank you so much, Cece. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Filer and Commissioner Cuellar. A couple of things just for your subcommittee. I'd like to propose, as you're thinking about the community forums for next year, I'd like to propose that we consider the possibility of relocating our in-person community forums / meetings from urban centers to more rural parts of California. That in particular, those that have not reported incidents of hate, but where we know such incidents occur, to broaden our outreach and to promote reporting. I think by doing so, we'll be able to foster a more comprehensive understanding of the challenges faced by various communities, and it will give us an opportunity to highlight and encourage reporting in those places. And we can take a data-driven approach. One of the things that I've been chatting with Director Monroe about is the California versus hate data and where it's coming from, and if there are trends in it, as a way for us to put a spotlight on or use our meetings or community forums as a way to highlight some of those things that they are seeing in the reporting around California versus hate. And then you already said that the other thing I was going to ask about dates for next year. So I think all of us like to plan in advance to make sure that we can attend things. So the sooner that we can do that, the better. And please feel free to work with staff on those locations and topics, et cetera. Commissioner.
Yeah, I think you're so right in looking at rural locations, because if we're wanting a real representation of our state, we need to go into those pockets and understand what's going on. So thank you for that comment.
I don't mean just rural. I mean also, not San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Right. Yeah. There are other cities in our state. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Having grown up in one that is not on that list. Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. We have vast data deserts in California, and while many of them are rural, I mean, LA County Sheriff's reports a ridiculously low number in the 20s for 6 million people. Anaheim, one of the 10 largest cities in the state, consistently reports 0 or 1 or 2. I wanted to, again, I just like when folks on our commission do great things. Chair Roybal, thank you for looking at the places that don't necessarily have a baseball stadium within their confines. but other places, but nationally also, we're seeing issues with regard to sheriff's departments. And we're seeing that here in California. And I'm sorry, but if folks want to fire me, they're able to do it. But I always called it like I saw it, and based on data and information. As my friend Commissioner Southers always say, a lot of people have opinions, but he has data. And Riverside County, one of the 10 largest agencies in the United States, reporting 4. So as you said, it's not just rural places. And by the way, I want to say I'm not coming at this with an idea of hitting people and agencies over the head. But by the same token, one of the reasons that we wanted a commission like this was because the legislature would not have time or subcommittees or wonderful people to have fora or to do research with regard to law enforcement or data. And now we are armed with that. And I wanted to really, again, just when my fellow commissioners are doing really good things, I'm going to raise my hand and say, great job. Chair, thank you. We have to go to those other areas, and even some which are not rural, as you so aptly pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. That completes our subcommittee reports. There's no report from the Subcommittee on Funding. Is there any public comment on any of the subcommittee reports or the chair's report? Monica, I don't see any verbal public comment. Are there any written public comments? I will read that there are some public comments that are in the chat that I will read in the next section.
No written public comment.
Okay, let's move on to commission member announcements. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Before we get to that, I just want to remind commissioners too that if one of the things I've talked with staff about is it doesn't always necessarily mean when we meet monthly that we need to have a full commission meeting. If there are subcommittees who want to collaborate together and spend some time working together, you are welcome to do that. Please be in touch with staff and we can notice those meetings publicly. We can take the time we've already set aside for a commission meeting if we don't have any other business to take care of, so that the subcommittees can meet together and we can be in compliance with Bagley-Keene and the other public meetings laws. So don't feel like you have to do your stuff in isolation and wait to the commission meeting. If you really need some time to work together on something, please let staff know so that we can accommodate that. Announcements, Commissioner Filer.
I wanted to let you all know I was officially appointed the chair of the UCLA Resnick Neuropsychiatric Board of Advisors. So I have started that, and I have a 3-year term, and I will be working with them to open our big behavioral science mental health hospital in the center of Los Angeles. That is our big task ahead of us.
Congratulations, Commissioner Filer. That's
you.
great news. Great news for Southern California, great news for California, great news for UCLA. Congratulations. Commissioner Salcedo.
Yes, thank you so much. I'd like to just make a couple of announcements. One, I'm not completely sure if fellow commissioners and just the public in general, because we have not made it public like that, but we are in the quest of building a state-of-the-art center here in Hollywood. We were granted by the California Department of Healthcare Services a grant for almost $18 million to do that work. But we still need to raise money. So yeah, so if you know anyone who is interested in supporting this amazing work, obviously to be visible and to support our community, but also, you know, this is a way to combat the hate that we continue to experience by empowering our community through service provision and leadership development and healing justice and all of the you know, things that needs to happen to our community. So I want to invite all of you to be part of it in some kind of way. If you're able and willing, or perhaps make connections. Again, we still need to raise money. So we would really appreciate that. And I mean, I know that you have been part of history, but if you want to be part of this history specifically, please be involved in some kind of way. Another thing that I want to announce is that we have our annual fundraising fashion show. It's called Garras. So if you are in the LA area, it's gonna be on November 18, which is the weekend before Thanksgiving. It's gonna be at the Pacific Design Center. Please check out Garras, GARRAS.org, garras.org. To get more information, if you'd like to come, please let us know, and we'll make sure that you get your ticket. So thank you again so much. Again, this is our annual fundraiser, and we're in a quest to raise $10 million. So help us get there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Salcedo. I have been to Garras. It is a lot of fun. So I encourage those of you that are going to be in LA that day to go. And congratulations again, Vice Chair Salcedo, on the grant and building out the center. It's going to be an amazing, not only home, but an area of respite for not only trans folks in LA, but all community members. So I can't wait for that for the groundbreaking. Congratulations. And again, congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much.
We're now going to move on to public comments on items not on the agenda. And so if you would like to speak to public comment on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand and we will call on you. We do have some written public comments that are in the chat, and I will read those now. The first is from Sean Gilbert. My apologies to have to leave sooner than I'd like due to another Zoom. I appreciate all of you for the conversations you have. I think it is important for all of us to hear you have them. These are emotional conversations, and it has a healing aspect to them, which all too many of us do not hear enough from our leaders. So thank you. May peace come soon. Thank you for your comment, Sean. Also, from a comment from Maha, who we heard from before. From ING. A final comment before I leave to the next meeting. Is there any way this body commission can convene Muslim and Jewish groups in California to discuss their communications on Gaza and Israel, and how important it is to address both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia when they're addressing bigotry? Important to recognize each other in their communications on bigotry. The situation in Gaza will be getting much worse before it gets better with the ground invasion. Hate rates will rise. My suggestion may mitigate and prevent hate. Please consider. I know Commissioner Levin has already talked about that, and I would refer that to Deputy Director Monroe and Director Watts, and we can talk about that in our separate meeting. And then the final comments from Michelle Keller-Sheehan to everyone. Thanks to all commissioners for sharing your heartfelt experiences and vulnerable emotions, as that's where humanity resides for each of us. Being new to this forum, do wonder when commissioners publicly report an example of hate incidents could also be any statement if there was any follow-up to what occurred, including at the football game as shared, which then later afterward, due to such egregious behavior, could or did become teachable moments. Data is great for capturing overall information and confirming funding purposes, and then actions also need to be taken for educated change, which may have happened but didn't learn about. Thanks for reading this as commentary for future consideration. In peace, Michelle Keller-Sheehan, community member versus hate. And then a comment from Lieutenant De Leon from the Riverside Sheriff's Office. I'm representing the Riverside Sheriff's Department today during this meeting because we want to be a part of the discussion and aid in this commission's mission. We have a hate policy in place, and we are reassessing based on AB 449. If you have any concerns regarding our policy reporting, feel free to reach out to me. I am the department legislative representative, and I'm open to working with the commission on this matter. And then Lieutenant De Leon included their email, which is jdeleon@riversidesheriff.org. Thank you for that comment, Lieutenant De Leon, and for attending the meeting today. Seeing that there are no other requests for public comment, I'll move. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Levin.
Yes, thank you, Lieutenant De Leon. FBI 2022 says Riverside reported 1 hate crime. And we're talking about a county that has more people than probably about 10 or 15 states. It would be my pleasure to talk to you, as long as I'm not violating some kind of hierarchy or some kind of subcommittee rules that we have. But it would be my pleasure to chat or meet with you at any time. Although I just wanted to say this in front of the rest of the commissioners, I'd like to go through the kind of procedural and hierarchical structures that we have within the commission. But thank you for reaching out. Riverside is one of those places that we've been looking at for a while, and I think I speak on behalf of the commission that we appreciate your presence here. And if there's any way the commission, and of course I am now speaking on behalf of the Civil Rights Department, but they're wonderful too. I'm sure that you will find open arms to assist you with that. Please, I will contact you offline. But we definitely have to improve data collection with regard to Riverside County. So thank you so much for being here, and I will contact you offline.
Thank you, Commissioner Levin. I would just make sure that you include Deputy Director Watts to make sure that we're not violating anything, and that in particular, if as a resource, Commissioner Damsky and Commissioner Souther's subcommittee, just to make sure that we're crossing all of our T's and dotting all our I's around that. So thank you. Future agenda items, as always, if you have agenda items, you are welcome to email me or Deputy Director Watts for items that you'd like to place on the agenda, and we will queue them up. And then if there's nothing further from the commissioners, I would just like to bring us to adjournment. And before we do that, I just want to say thank you to all of you. The conversation today was rich and emotional, and I hope we can model for our state and for the people that we serve, all the people of California, for how to have hard discussions and emotional discussions, but be able to listen to one another. And I just want to say to all of you, it is an honor to serve with you, and I'm proud to serve with you on the commission. So thank you very much for your time. You are not getting paid for this. You are devoting many hours to this work to make our state a better place. And I certainly appreciate that, and I look forward to our continued work together. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Chair.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Damsky, seconded by Commissioner Salcedo. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the staff for all your work on getting this meeting together. And we will meet again I hopefully will see many of you at the community forum in a couple of weeks in Los Angeles, and then at the commission meeting community forum in December here in San Diego. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Officially adjourned at 11:14.
Don't forget to breathe.
Thank you. Yes.